The lake was a mirror. It reflected the sky's fiery descent, turning the water into liquid gold and crimson. A gentle breeze whispered through the pines that lined the shore, their long shadows stretching out like fingers trying to touch the fading light. It was a scene of perfect peace, the kind of peace that steals into your soul and makes you forget, for a moment, the weight of the world. I sat on a weathered wooden dock, letting the cool evening air wash over me. The scent of pine needles and damp earth filled my nostrils. It was a familiar smell, one that evoked memories of childhood summers spent at my grandparents' cabin. Back then, the world seemed so much simpler. Life was full of possibilities, unburdened by the weight of decisions and consequences. As I watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in a final burst of glory, I felt a familiar tug at my heart. They moved closer, their steps slow and deliberate, as if each movement was weighed down by an unseen force. The air around them seemed to thicken, making every breath I took feel labored. And I could see that the figure they carried was a man. His body hung limply between them, swaying slightly with each step they took. The closer they got, the more details I could make out. His head lolled to the side as if he were in a deep, dreamless sleep. The pallor of his skin was almost ghostly, contrasting starkly with the darkening sky. His long hair, white as snow, cascaded over the arms of those who bore him. It shimmered faintly in the dim light, adding an ethereal quality to the already surreal scene. He seemed lifeless, his skin pale and waxy in the fading light. The eerie glow of the sunset cast long shadows across his face, making him appear almost otherworldly. A sense of unease settled over me, a cold shiver running down my spine. The scene before me felt like something out of a nightmare, too strange and unsettling to be real. Were they bringing a dead man to the lake? The thought sent a jolt of fear through me. What kind of ritual was this? Why here, by the water, under the cloak of twilight? Was this some ancient ritual passed down through generations, hidden from the eyes of the modern world? The air was thick with mystery, each moment stretching into an eternity. The two men, their faces hidden in the shadows of their hoods, reached the end of the dock. Their movements were synchronized, almost mechanical, as if they had done this many times before. They paused, their bodies silhouetted against the last sliver of the setting sun. The sky was a canvas of deep oranges and purples, the light reflecting off the water in a dazzling display. Then, with a gentleness that belied the apparent weight of their burden, they lowered the man in white onto the wooden planks. The dock creaked under the added weight, the sound echoing across the still water. I wanted to look away, to pretend I hadn't seen them. My mind screamed at me to turn and run, to escape this bizarre and terrifying scene, but something held me there, rooted to the spot. It was as if my feet were glued to the ground, my body refusing to obey my desperate commands. It was as if an invisible hand had closed around my heart, compelling me to witness whatever was about to unfold. The air was electric with anticipation, every nerve in my body on edge. Fear battled with fascination within me. I was terrified, yet I couldn't tear my eyes away. The scene was both horrifying and mesmerizing, a macabre dance that held me captive. One of the figures turned, his gaze sweeping across the water. His movements were slow and deliberate, as if he were searching for something hidden beneath the surface. He seemed to be looking for something, or someone. The intensity of his search was palpable, his eyes scanning the horizon with a fierce determination. Then his head snapped in my direction. The suddenness of the movement made my heart skip a beat, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. Even in the dim light I could feel the intensity of his gaze, piercing through the gathering darkness. He had seen me, there was no doubt about it. His eyes locked onto mine, and in that moment I felt a connection, a silent understanding that chilled me to the bone. The figure in the shadows turned back to his companion. The forest was dense, the air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows that danced with the flickering light of the fire they had built. The two men, cloaked in darkness, seemed to blend into the night itself. They exchanged a few whispered words, their voices barely audible over the crackling of the fire. The urgency in their tones was palpable, though the exact words were lost to the night. It was clear that whatever they were discussing was of great importance, something that could not be overheard by prying ears. Their voices too low for me to hear, I strained to catch even a fragment of their conversation. The way they leaned in close, their faces partially illuminated by the firelight, suggested a deep bond of trust and secrecy. It was as if they were sharing a secret that had been kept for centuries, a truth that could change everything. Then, with a swiftness that startled me, they pulled back the white cloth that covered the man on the dock. The cloth fluttered to the ground, revealing a figure that seemed almost otherworldly in the dim light. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his eyes were wide open, staring unblinkingly at the sky. My breath caught in my throat. The sight was both mesmerizing and terrifying. I had never seen anything like it. The man on the dock seemed to be in a state of suspended animation, caught between life and death. His chest rose and fell with shallow breaths, each one a testament to his fragile hold on life. The man's eyes were open, staring straight up at the darkening sky. He was alive. But there was something more, something that set him apart from any ordinary man. His gaze was fixed, unblinking, as if he were seeing something beyond the physical world, something that only he could perceive. But it was more than that. There was a radiance about him, an ethereal glow that seemed to emanate from his very being. It was as if he were illuminated from within, a light that defied the darkness surrounding him. This glow was not just a trick of the light, it was something intrinsic to him, a part of his very essence. There was a radiance about him, an ethereal glow that seemed to emanate from his very being. This light was soft yet powerful, casting gentle shadows that danced around him. It was as if he were a beacon in the night, a guiding light for those lost in the darkness. The glow seemed to pulse with his heartbeat, a living, breathing entity. He was like a figure from a dream, both beautiful and terrifying. And then he moved. His movements were slow and deliberate, each one filled with a grace that seemed almost supernatural. It was as if he were moving through water, his limbs gliding effortlessly through the air. The sight was both mesmerizing and unsettling, a dance of life and death. With a grace that defied the laws of nature, he rose to his feet. His movements were fluid, almost as if he were weightless. He stood tall and proud, his eyes still fixed on the sky. There was a sense of purpose in his stance, a determination that seemed to radiate from him. It was clear that he was no ordinary man, but something far greater. He took a step, and then another, his bare feet seeming to glide over the rough surface of the dock. Each step was deliberate, each movement precise. It was as if he were walking on air, his feet barely touching the ground. The dock creaked under his weight, but he moved with a lightness that belied his physical form. And then, he stepped off the edge. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The world held its breath as he hung suspended in mid-air, defying gravity itself. It was a moment of pure magic, a glimpse into a world where the impossible was possible. And then, he began to descend, his movements slow and controlled. For a moment he hung suspended in mid-air. It was as if he were caught between two worlds, the physical and the ethereal. The air around him seemed to shimmer, a halo of light that surrounded him. And then, with a grace that defied explanation, he began to walk. His feet touched the surface of the water, and he continued his journey. Then, as if walking on solid ground, he continued across the surface of the water. Each step was sure and steady, his movements fluid and graceful. The water rippled beneath his feet, but he remained undeterred. It was as if he were walking on a path that only he could see, a path that led him to a destination known only to him. Each step sent out ripples that spread across the lake, breaking the reflection of the stars that had begun to appear in the night sky. The water seemed to come alive with his presence, each ripple a testament to his passage. The stars above twinkled in response, as if acknowledging the miracle unfolding below. It was a sight that would be etched into my memory forever, a moment of pure, unadulterated wonder. My mind reeled, struggling to process what my eyes were seeing. It was as if the very fabric of reality had been torn apart, leaving me standing at the edge of an abyss, peering into the unknown. The air around me seemed to thicken, each breath a laborious effort as my heart pounded in my chest. I could feel the sweat forming on my brow, a cold reminder of the fear and confusion that gripped me. Was this real? Was I dreaming? My mind raced through 1,000 possibilities, each more implausible than the last. I pinched myself, hoping the sharp sting would jolt me awake, but the scene before me remained unchanged. The world around me felt both hyper-real and surreal, a vivid dreamscape that defied all logic. Was this man truly walking on water? The sight was both mesmerizing and terrifying, a spectacle that seemed to belong to the realm of myth and legend rather than the mundane reality I knew. The water's surface rippled gently beneath his feet, yet he remained aloft, defying the very laws of physics. Or was there some rational explanation, some trick of the light that my mind was simply too overwhelmed to grasp? I searched for answers in the reflections on the water, hoping to catch a glimpse of the hidden mechanism that made this illusion possible. But the more I looked, the more elusive the truth became, slipping through my fingers like water. I had always considered myself a man of reason, a skeptic by nature. My life had been built on a foundation of facts and evidence, a fortress of rationality that I believed to be unassailable. I prided myself on my ability to see through deception, to uncover the hidden truths that lay beneath the surface. My chosen field, journalism, demanded it. As a journalist, I was trained to question everything, to seek out the truth no matter how deeply it was buried. I had spent countless hours chasing leads, interviewing sources, and piecing together the puzzle of human experience. My work was my calling, my way of making sense of the world. Yet, here I was, face to face with something that defied all logic, all reason. The man on the water was a living contradiction, a challenge to everything I thought I knew. My mind struggled to reconcile the impossible with the possible, to find a place for this anomaly within the framework of my understanding. It was a moment of profound cognitive dissonance, a clash between the world I thought I knew and the impossible reality unfolding before me. The serene lake, the gentle ripples, the twilight sky, all of it seemed to conspire to create a scene of otherworldly beauty and mystery. I felt like a character in a story, caught between two worlds, each pulling me in a different direction. My own internal struggle mirrored the larger conflict within me. I was torn between the desire to believe in the miraculous and the need to find a rational explanation. This moment was a microcosm of my life, a reflection of the choices and dilemmas that had shaped my journey. For years, I had been torn between two paths. One path was well-trodden, a familiar route that promised stability and certainty. The other was shrouded in mystery, a road less traveled that beckoned with the promise of discovery and transformation. Each path had its own allure, its own set of challenges and rewards. One path led to a career in journalism, a life dedicated to uncovering the truth, to giving voice to the voiceless. It was a path that demanded rigor and discipline, a commitment to the principles of honesty and integrity. I had walked this path for years, finding fulfillment in the pursuit of knowledge and the power of the written word. The other path, the one less traveled, led to the seminary, to a life of faith and service. It was a path that called to my soul, a whisper of a higher purpose that resonated deep within me. The seminary offered a chance to explore the mysteries of existence, to seek answers to the questions that had always haunted me. But how could I reconcile my desire to serve God with my inherent skepticism? How could I embrace a life of faith when my mind was constantly seeking proof, constantly questioning? The conflict within me was a battle between heart and mind, between belief and doubt. How could I preach faith when a part of me always demanded proof? The very essence of faith was to believe without seeing, to trust without evidence. Yet, my journalistic instincts, honed over years of seeking the truth, made it difficult to accept anything without question. I was caught in a paradox, a struggle that seemed to have no resolution. The man walking on water seemed to embody that very conflict, a living, breathing paradox that challenged everything I thought I knew about faith and reason. He was a symbol of the unknown, a reminder that there are mysteries in this world that defy explanation. As I stood there watching him, I realized that perhaps the true journey was not about choosing one path over the other, but about finding a way to walk both, to embrace the mystery and the truth, the faith and the reason in a harmonious balance.